Let's take a very quick romp, not an entirely systematic romp, through some of the greatest of the technological breakthroughs in each of the ages of globalization. I want us to have a sense of how these ages were shaped by basic advances of know-how and how those advances reshaped all aspects of society, how we live, how we thrive or fail to thrive, how we kill each other in war, how we have advances in human well-being, how and why inequalities widen in society. Now, I mentioned already that in the first age of globalization, the Paleolithic age, the age of the hunter-gatherers, there were significant technological advances. They occurred gradually over a long period of time, but they included the harnessing of fire for multiple purposes, for heat, for light, for hunting, for shaping our materials, including stone tools, and those breakthroughs were, of course, what created the foundations of humanity. Let's turn to the Neolithic, or the second age of globalization, with agriculture. Here, the great breakthrough that came at the end of the Pleistocene, at the end of the last ice age, was the ability to move beyond foraging or hunting and gathering of food to settlements with permanent crops, learning that crops could be grown, that seeds could be saved and selected, that crops could be improved over time, and that animals could be domesticated, starting with dogs probably between 10 and 15,000 years ago, then sheep, goats, cattle, and other farm animals starting around 10,000 years ago. These are enormous breakthroughs that made possible settled life, and with settled life, the earliest forms of government. They occurred independently in several key locations. As I've emphasized, the innovation of agriculture was not a one-time event that then diffused to the rest of the world, as is true for other kinds of technological breakthroughs. In the case of agriculture, there were surely wholly independent innovations in both crop production and animal domestication. So that was no doubt the decisive breakthrough of the second, or the Neolithic age of globalization. When we turn to the third age of globalization, the Equestrian Age, the name that I've given it itself, it tells my view of what was decisive around 3000 BCE, 3000 before the Common Era, or 5,000 years ago, and that was the breakthrough in one specific kind of animal domestication, and that was the domestication of the horse. And of course, it was not only domestication of the horse, but related species that could be used for transport, for military, for animal traction, including the camel, including the African equus, the donkey, and other related species in the Americas later on, the llama and other camelid species related to camels in the Andeans, in the Andean mountains. So these breakthroughs in the Equestrian Age centered on the domestication of the horse. The horse is a glorious aid to humanity. Of course, the horse was for basically almost 5,000 years the automobile of choice, if I may say so. It was the vehicle of transport to be able to go rapidly and at long distances, and there was no other real substitution for that. So parts of the world in which horses could live and thrive had an enormous advantage over places that could not sustain a horse population, especially places in the tropics. Horses don't like it too hot, and they're highly vulnerable to tropical diseases. They thrive most in the steppe regions, the grassland, dry regions, just on the northern side of the great desert belts. And this is where the horse arrived for Eurasian use starting around 5,000 years ago. The importance of horse domestication is pervasive. It changed everything. With the horse, now political structures could be more than a small village because it was possible to move much, much longer distances. Trade could be over much longer distances. And of course, it was quickly realized or innovated that the horse could be a massively powerful instrument of war in the form of the chariots and the cavalry assaults. And the horse from then till really the 20th century was of fundamental technological importance in all military encounters in places where the horse could live and thrive, and it virtually defined large empires to be able to have the military force of the cavalry. So this was the great breakthrough around 3000 BCE that reshaped society. It came along with another hugely important category of change that was contemporaneous with that, and that is in the mining and the minerals part of the economy and the manufacturing, and that specifically is the discoveries or innovations of the use of metals. And historians and archaeologists have shown that the first metals that were developed were copper, because of the easier management of copper, lower boiling point, and easier to use. But copper by itself was not decisive as a tool of war or a tool for the economy because it is too soft, too malleable. But what came after the first copper age around 4000 BC, or in other words, 6,000 years ago, was the beginning of the Bronze Age. Bronze is an alloy. It's a mix of copper and tin. And the discovery that by taking copper and adding in a small amount of tin, the resulting alloy, bronze, would be a very durable and strong metal that could be used for all sorts of purposes, all sorts of instruments, tools, and of course for military purposes as well, led to an enormous breakthrough. Combine the discovery of bronze with the discovery or the innovation of horse domestication, suddenly you have powerful armies, and powerful armies that can have powerful instruments of war and can move rapidly and can go long distances. It's the combination of the Bronze Age and the domestication of the horse that brought us the first empires in Mesopotamia, in Babylonia, Assyria, Uruk, Sumeria, the ancient empires of history were horses that came from the Eurasian steppes, and breakthroughs in metallurgy combined to make the beginnings of empire, first city-states, and then city-states that could expand and increase their range and make some of the, of course, most important early empires of history. With those empires came other breakthroughs of governance, of law, of social organization, of hierarchy, and of cultural ideas.